What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Jose Talk Sports, where I share my take on all news surrounding the San Francisco 49ers. And if you're a member of the Niner faithful like I am, then be sure to like the video and subscribe for more content about the San Francisco 49ers. Well, you guys, we just concluded week 2 of the NFL preseason. And as we take another step closer towards the NFL regular season, we start to see how these teams are taking form, who's going to gain the starting positions on which starting franchises, and more importantly, how the San Francisco 49ers are going to be looking moving forward into the 2022 NFL season. This past weekend, we saw the San Francisco 49ers visit the Minnesota Vikings and would emerge victorious, coming out 17-7, winning the game behind the heroics of Brock Purdy and Nate Sudfeld at quarterback, both quarterbacks producing a somewhat decent and productive game, I might add. They combined for 3 sacks. However, if you look at them individually, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant as he's affectionately known following the draft, completed 14 out of his 23 attempts, finished with 128 yards passing. He did, suffer 2 sacks. But then you look at Nate Sudfeld, who is practically a veteran at this point, completing 13 of his 17 passes, 102 yards to match, and 1 touchdown as well as 1 sack. The San Francisco 49ers, I feel like, are moving towards a very productive, slate, if you could say that. We look at the 2 interceptions the defense was able to amass from Minnesota. George Odom and Taylor Hawkins, 1 interception apiece. I enjoy what I'm seeing from the San Francisco defense as well as their offense. And although this game we were missing 27 athletes on the team, a lot of it was reserved for the backups and the bench players, and those were really fighting for those last spots on the roster. You look at the third down efficiency. San Francisco was 7 out of 16. Also, as Minnesota, they held them 2 out of 11, which meaning that 9 times out of 11, the San Francisco defense was able to prevent a third down conversion. One important note that I wanted to include was the penalties. Yes, it's preseason, however, Minnesota only had 2 penalties, whereas the San Francisco 49ers suffered 10. That is a number we definitely want to decrease. We do not want to see it increase, especially in terms of controlling the ball, controlling the tempo, and overall controlling the game against these NFL teams. And you want to talk about controlling the tempo. The San Francisco 49ers overall had 74 plays versus the Minnesota Vikings 50 plays. And the reason behind that is just the time of possession. Minnesota held the ball for 22 minutes, whereas the Niners had it for 38 minutes. That's a big recipe for victory. You want to be able to control the clock. You want to be able to control the ball. San Francisco was able to do that on both ends, on defense and on offense. The one thing I do think they need to improve on is getting into the end zone. We relied on Robbie Gould 3 times for 3 field goals, 1 from 49 yards, 46 yards, and finally 28 yards. The only touchdown came from Nate Sudfeld on a 2-yard pass to JaMycal Hasty, followed by a Danny Gray 2-point conversion. I'm liking the way they're implementing Danny Gray into this offense. He's become a more versatile athlete as a member of this team since being drafted a couple months ago. I hope to see him more on the offense during the regular season, especially behind guys like Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, and so forth. We now move forward to Thursday with the Houston Texans coming onto our schedule. The Niners will face the Houston Texans as their 3rd and final game of the NFL preseason. Following that, we will be facing the Chicago Bears Week 1 in Soldier Field in Chicago. But before we get to the NFL season, we're going through the top 100 best NFL players of 2021, and the San Francisco 49ers introduced 3 more of their key players on that list. Linebacker Fred Warner would rank at number 47, our defensive end Nick Bosa at 25, and everyone's favorite tight end George Kittle ranks at number 22. That is 3 more San Francisco 49ers that are now on the list, which leaves us with just 2. I do believe Trent Williams and Debo Samuel could possibly crack the top 10. Will they? I don't know. We have to wait and see, but I definitely see one of them at the very least cracking that top 10. With the previous names that we mentioned, whether it was Warner, Bosa, and Kittle, I think they're all premier athletes. I think they're top tier talents at their position. Kittle, you could argue, is a top 2 tight end. Bosa is one of the premier pass rushers, and Fred Warner is one of the all-time great linebackers that we have in this league today. Not to say that he's not an all-time great in the NFL's history, but just when you match him up with guys across the league, I do think Fred Warner is among the best and the brightest linebacker in the league today. In other San Francisco news, Jason Verrett just announced that he will be missing the first 4 games of the 2022 season as a result of his ACL injury, which he suffered last year in Week 1. He will miss the first 4 games. He is eligible to return for Week 5 against Carolina. Now with folks like him and Jimmy Ward being missing on the secondary, we're definitely going to need those two to come back. But thankfully, through the last two drafts, the Niners have been able to draft secondary and really ensure that there is a level of depth that we haven't had for quite some time. What we've really been recognized for is our defensive line and the depth that comes with that. However, the secondary has slowly but surely been being built into a system that we can rely on and hopefully expand upon in the coming season. I do anticipate them to come back healthier. It's never easy to come back from an ACL injury. However, we're not asking him to be the number one cornerback of all time. We do just need him to be a productive cornerback who is able to defend the ball, really, and especially protect the defense and allow them to brace themselves and give the pass rushers more time to get to the quarterback. Also, as we approach week 1, it's been stated that Elijah Mitchell is looking good. He's progressing very well in his injury, his hamstring injury, and that he should be expected to play week 1 against the Chicago Bears. Again, when it comes to depth, I feel like the Niners are at a place right now where they have that ability to really have some wiggle room, if you will. Our defensive line is deep, our running back core is deep, our wide receiver core is now becoming a little more deeper, as well as our cornerbacks and safeties. I'm looking forward to this next season of NFL football. As a San Francisco fan, I feel like we are definitely in position to contend. Folks like to admit it or not, the only issue I think we face is the continuation of the development of treylance, as well as preserving the offensive line in order to protect him. Combining those two efforts, as well as our let's be honest, the amount of wealth we have in terms of talent on this team, I feel like it's unmatched. I feel like this group of talent that we have today is enough to contend. You have premier guys like George Kittle, Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, bring in Trey Lance, Trent Williams, Juszczyk. There's so many more that I'm not naming, but I just feel like this group of guys, they are ready, they are hungry, they are a couple of years removed from being in the Super Bowl, and last year coming off an NFC Championship loss. These guys know what it takes. They know what it takes to compete at a high level and continue to push and to continue to drive into the Super Bowl aspirations that they have hoped for their whole careers, their whole lives. And us as Niner fans, I feel like we can feel it. You can feel the rumblings, you can feel the energy, the hype is real. I'm looking forward to this NFL season, as well as how the San Francisco 49ers produce and how they compete. That's all we want. We just want the energy, we want the competition, we want them to compete. Give us that energy, give us that production, and I'm pretty sure, I'm fairly confident that this year might be our best with Kyle Shanahan. And if you enjoyed this video today, be sure to give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more Niners content. Drop your thoughts below in the comment section about how you think the Niners are looking and what they're going to be able to do in this coming NFL season. And also be sure to check out my podcast, Two Beans in a Pod, where my brother Jared and I discuss our feelings about the Niners and how we think they'll fare this season. As always, my name is Jose, and this has been Jose Talks Sports, and I will see you in the next video.